Mitigating Bias in the Hiring Process and the Workplace. Stephanie is the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Belonging at Mindbody. She has been a talent management lifecycle and optimization consultant with more than 20 years experience developing inclusive workplace practices to source, recruit, engage, and advance diverse employees. Her experience includes a wide range of varied HR functions, from recruitment, human resources and talent management to leadership training, diversity, and inclusion. So welcome, Stephanie. Joining Stephanie in conversation, we have Dana Hall, who is an accountant executive at PowerToFly. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm going to take some notes out because I know you are going to share a lot of knowledge as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mariella. Hi, everyone. My name's Dana Hall, like Mariella said, and I have the pleasure of actually working with my client today, Stephanie Wemusa. So we have 28 more minutes together. Let's hop right in. Stephanie, would love to hear a little bit about yourself. We know your title as the Director of DE&I at Mindbody, but tell us where you're based and the most important, a fun fact about yourself so the audience can get to know you a little bit. Oh, you're on mute though. We've all done that.
Hello, sorry about that. So yes, I am the Director of DEIB for Mindbody, and I'm responsible for diversity initiatives across the company, whether those be with our employees and our leadership as well, and the community. Let's see here. I am based in South County, Sarah County, and in Gilroy, about 30 minutes south of San Jose in California. Have been here for many years, and my role is indefinite remote, but occasionally I do head down to San Luis Obispo, which is where our headquarters are. Let's see, something fun about me. I love to travel. Disneyland, Marvel movies are my happy place. And I have a dog named Oxford Winston who believes he should be on my lap anytime I'm working, including now.
What kind of dog is Oxford Winston?
He is a Yorkshire Terrier, 5 years old.
Oh wow, he must be really well behaved because out of all the calls that we've had, I haven't ever seen him. So he must be quietly sitting underneath the desk on your lap.
No, on my lap, if I'm working, no matter if it's 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, he believes he should be there. So
he believes he should always have a buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, awesome. I'm so excited to get to do this today. Since what we're here to talk about is, mitigating bias along the hiring process, I guess I'd love to just hear from you. We've heard a lot about bias, the audience, professionals in HR. Over the last few years, it's become a more prominent piece of our discussion. What are some of the things that Mindbody is doing today, as well as, taking a step back, how is Mindbody actually defining bias through a workplace lens?
Yeah, so I should be quite transparent and say that we had our unconscious bias training prior to me coming on board, and it was attended by 98% of our employees, which is amazing. So everybody essentially went through unconscious bias, which I think is admirable. And it is that standpoint that it's human, we all have it. It's something that we have to be conscious of on a very deliberate level to counter it. And, we need to educate ourselves about it and also kind of look in the mirror and be in check in terms of our own biases in a personal way. But what I can say is what we're looking at is next steps, which is, okay, I've got my unconscious bias, I'm aware of that, but what do I do next? And so we're really looking at working on our inclusive leadership practices. How do we groom our organization in terms of our leaders being inclusive and not only being just kind of asked to do it, but really sharing with them how we want to do that and how we want to make that happen. So I would say in a kind of a dual essence, that's how we approach countering bias within our hiring process and within our company culture as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I know, for example, at PowerToFly, we've done some unconscious bias trainings and we've kind of set the foundation even just within our own organization, but there is an element that it comes down to the own individual too, right? So I guess I'd love to hear maybe just on your team or within talent acquisition with the hiring process, is there anything that Mindbody's doing to help kind of the curious individual continue to stay curious and continue to learn more?
Yes, absolutely. Diversity and talent acquisition do collaborate quite often on some of the things that we're working on. And one of the things that we're working on as we speak is the hiring process training for our leaders. And that will include a strong component of diversity, not only as a value, but throughout the training as well. So we are very cognizant that that's important. Another thing we're doing is having our ERG leaders contribute to the hiring process. So if we have somebody that's a final candidate in our process that is interested in speaking to someone in our ERG, they have a list of what those ERGs are. They can select an option in terms of who they'd like to talk to, just about working in our company as well. So those are just a couple of things that we're doing. And one other thing is it's really structuring our interviews to really focus on the job content, job description, as opposed to the weather or the sports game last night, and having really consistent interviews with all of our candidates so that they have just a really wonderful candidate experience.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, you've been at Mindbody. Has it been a year now? It hasn't been a year.
No.
It's been 5 months. That's right. So is there anything else that you would add on that maybe, the work is never done, right? Mindbody is not perfect. No company is perfect. Is there anything that you've seen that has worked from past employment that Mindbody may or may not be doing already, but just in an effort to kind of share with other Stephanies or other people, within DEI or TA, what are some things that you have seen that have worked?
Yeah, so a few things. So some on the side of boots on the ground. In terms of UR programs, we have a really robust one that's growing, and they're making a huge effort to be on campuses that have more people of color, right? So HBCUs are making an emphasis there. Schools that might have Latinx talent, they're making an emphasis there, so that not only are we looking at seasoned employees and really carousing our network for those, but also starting to develop relationships with universities on campus and ensuring that we're trying to build that talent and that relationship and that trust with them as well. So that's another way that we're doing it. And we're also always looking at different ways and different products possibly that can help us be more inclusive. One includes looking at our job descriptions and how those can be more inclusive in terms of their verbiage and language, that they're inviting and that they're not putting people off, that people want to apply and come have conversations with us. In my previous life, in a company that I work for, they also use blind resumes, resume redaction. So the manager that's looking at resumes is only looking at the real core critical elements of a resume, not their name, not where they live, not where they went to school. So there's lots of different ways to mitigate that bias as you go through the process.
Sure. Yeah, I actually sat in on one of my clients' inclusive interview trainings with one of our consultants recently, and I heard about the redaction of resumes. And me never being in recruiting, I didn't know that that was even a topic of discussion, but it makes a lot of sense, right? At the end of the day, what matters is if you have those requirements to set you up for success within the job that you're interviewing for.
And the nice part is it's nice for the candidate and the manager, right? Because the manager is only looking that initial resume at the criteria that's important for that particular role. And if they're not seeing anything else except what has been selected for them to see, then when they start to rank the resumes, it's really based on, does this resume have the talent that I'm looking for or not? And nothing else. And they're able to rank that, decide who they're going to interview next, decide who's going to go further into the process. So it just really takes that bias out.
Amazing. Yeah, whenever I heard that, it was like, oh, of course, like that makes a lot of sense. And something I really like that you said that I wasn't aware of is involving your ERGs in your hiring process at Mindbody and beyond. What else does that look like? I think that's really a brilliant way. Are they actually also meeting with talent acquisition behind the scenes and like helping to understand the nuances of different kinds of diverse talent?
Well, a couple of things are happening. One I'd like to talk about is our work with PowerToFly. We have a couple of different things that are happening with our recruitment team in terms of candidates and prospective candidates to start learning more about Mindbody and getting that information directly from our recruiters, which I think is really awesome. The other piece in terms of the ERGs is that we have 8 ERGs, and of those ERGs, if a candidate wants to talk to someone about, just what it's like to work at Mindbody, they get to opt in and choose who they'd like to have a conversation with. And if that's someone they have an affinity with or someone that maybe they're an ally, either way, it's up to that candidate if they want to have some conversation, and especially if they don't see themselves in the actual interview process, that they know that there are people within Mindbody that they might have an affinity to.
Okay. And 8 ERGs, that's a lot. And it's exciting. We have a question from the audience. So I haven't, and thank you so much. I'm not sure who asked this, but we've talked about some things that Mindbody and employers are doing to mitigate bias, but let's put a little bit of I guess let's flip the context and think about it from the candidate's perspective. This person's asking, what steps can be taken by the candidates to design their resume through which they can avoid unconscious bias from their recruiters? So is there anything that candidates can be doing to set their own selves up for success with recruiting teams?
Absolutely. I understand that question. As a matter, I'm going to just be really transparent and say that I am an instructor at San Jose State. I teach in the engineering department, and I teach communication to engineers. And so we do very real communication, including resumes and LinkedIn profiles. So I just want to let you know, I do come from a stance of doing this work as well. And, one thing I think for me, even on my resume from the very top, the first header is you're asked this usually to put your name, your address, your telephone number, and your LinkedIn profile, and maybe and also your email contact, right? I stopped putting my address on my resume many, many years ago. It wasn't because I was in conflict about where I lived. It was more about the distance of where I lived from the jobs that I was trying to go after. I knew I was willing to travel on the train, drive through the commute, do whatever I need to do to get to particular work. But sometimes when the recruiters look at your resume, right away, if they see that, oh, they live maybe too far, they might eliminate you from the process, right? And you don't want to give anyone the opportunity to eliminate you from an opportunity. So that's just one quick example I can give you of, your name is required. Yes, your email address and phone number. They need to know how to contact you. Definitely your LinkedIn profile, but your address is not mandatory. So that's one thing to let you know. There are other things, maybe organizations that you belong to, or committees and things like that. You can choose to have them on your resume or not. I don't particularly care to say, okay, I don't want an organization that identifies me as a Black woman on my resume. If anything, 2 things are happening. One, you will see that I do belong to these organizations. I'm very involved in my community. 2, it's obvious probably that I might be a Black woman. But for me, I think I would prefer for someone to see my community involvement and how committed I am to my community and my work as well. And if that's a problem for some folks, that might not be the best place for me to be. And that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about it, right? It's on one hand, from a candidate's perspective, only listing the things that are truly mandatory and add value from the recruiter's perspective to ultimately decide if you are or are not a good fit for this role, at least for a first call. And then also, just from your own perspective, don't hesitate to, or don't, from the candidate's perspective, don't redact things because you're worried about bias. If there is bias, then I guess in your own words, then maybe that's not the place for you, right? And how I said, every company is not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. No recruiters are perfect, and we're all working on this. But also just keep in mind whenever you're thinking about your resume, does this add value? If it adds value because it shows that I'm dedicated to my community and the level of involvement that I'm willing to put forth in like a team setting, then great. But if not, then maybe choose to leverage or list something else.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also research the companies that you're planning to apply to. Find out who they are and what they're about and what their emphasis is. And of course, also, every position is different. I don't think there's a template, right? I work in this work of diversity. So there's an assumption that I am doing things within my community. But you're right. I think it's really about what adds value and that you look at each position as its own and decide what you want to disclose about yourself.
Sure. And while we're on the topic, do you have any favorite tools or organizations that you've leveraged in the past to either help with the redaction, to find and communicate with people of color? Any favorites you want to throw out there that you've had good experience with?
Yeah, so one, I have to be transparent. Prior to coming to Mindbody, I worked with a company called Telvista. They are a platform that essentially takes the bias out of the hiring process. They mitigate bias, and they have 3 tools, one of which is the job description tool that they use to ensure that the job description itself is inclusive. It's that first step. And you literally drop your job description into this tool. It alerts you as to what words may be biased versus not, which things you want to include, which ones you want to embellish. And they also have a resume redactor and a structured interview. So there are tools out there, platforms that will help you do this work and that are just really good at doing it. And I used to work with them and I had to measure that work as well. I had to show the ROI, the value of the tool, and do measurement work. So whatever tool you choose, no matter what it is, you do want to ensure that the company has a way for you to measure success or not. And in a time period of 3 to 6 months, is this tool working or is it not? It should always be able to show you the relevance and the ROI.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. And hopefully a couple shout outs, Emily and Molly. Hopefully that addresses some of your questions. So I know I'm looking at the time. We have about 10 minutes left. Holy cow, it flies by. Let's kind of flip forward in the candidate life cycle. We've only been talking about up to interview. What about post interview? Once a person's hired, the bias doesn't go away. Bias can frequently become an even greater problem when it comes to low retention rates. And more importantly, for the entire team as well as the individual, it can lead to a poor experience. So what are some of the things that Mindbody is doing to minimize bias and promote DEIB on a day-to-day basis post-hire?
Yeah, good question. So retention is like the golden nugget, right? If any of us can really figure that one out, how do we keep good talent, no matter who they are? How do we keep them on board, especially as we go through this talent resignation, as we call it, and a war on talent at the same time? What I will say, I want to talk a little bit about my history in terms of working as a TA consultant. Really deciding that, I'm tired of just bringing people in and watching them leave the company within 3, 6 months to a year, right? There's no retention, they don't stay because they come in, and they don't feel comfortable, and then they move on and go somewhere else. So I decided that, okay, if I'm going to do your recruitment to bring people in, prior to that, I really like to work with you on hiring leaders in terms of preparing them to embrace talent. And embrace differences, and also work with the recruiters to do that as well, so that we nip the bias in the hiring process to begin with, but we also start to work on what is the onboarding and retention plan as well. How are we going to keep these people within the company too? So that has been kind of one of my mantras. The mission is really working with leaders on how can they create an inclusive environment. We are currently working with a woman by the name of Melissa Majors. She's incredible. She's written a book called The 7 Habits of Inclusive Leaders, a guilt-free free, I think it's no shame way of doing this work. And she's written the book, plus she's a consultant, she's a coach. And we are working with her, with all of our leaders, from our ELT through our ERG leaders, to really work with our folks in terms of what does this language look like? What are the behaviors that we'd like to see? How do we create an inclusive environment for everyone to bring their authentic selves to work? So that's one of the things that we're doing alongside our ERGs, which I said we do have 8 of, that are incredibly talented folks in these ERG leaderships especially. And not only are they, I would say, ERGs, but sometimes they're also BRGs, right? So it means they're business related as well. And they have a business impact, and they are involved in things like our diversity product team task force that we have, and they're very impactful there and contribute in terms of how we're looking at our products from a global way, and ensuring that we're creating diverse product mindset when we do this. So those are a couple of things. We've got mentor programs as well. And those are just a few of the things that we're doing consistently, simultaneously as we speak.
Awesome. And I guess just to even taking it a step further with Mindbody being a wellness company, I know I've sat in on a couple of virtual job fairs in the past. Talk to us a little bit about some of the wellness benefits that Mindbody offers. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know there's some really cool ones out there.
Well, yes, we are a wellness company, but we're also a technology company. So that's something that I made the mistake of thinking when I came on board. It's like, oh, it's going to be like yin every day, and we're going to have yoga hour at lunch, and it's just going to be amazing, right? So I came on during the pandemic, and much to my surprise, yes, we are very much concentrated on having some wellness and having some balance within our work and our team members as well. But we are a technology company. So that means, there's a certain amount of pace that's involved in doing that work. One of the benefits, of course, we have the days off like everybody else and vacation and that type of thing. But one thing that I do enjoy that we have is something called our BenePass benefits, which we get every month that we can use towards wellness. So whether that be an exercise class, yoga, soul cycle, going to the salon or the spa, those dollars are there for us to use every month. And so I admit I have used mine so far for massage. I haven't done, a workout yet, which is, I'm telling myself I'm going to do that too, but so far mine have been for massage. So yes, it is a nice perk to have.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I know I would, as soon as you said soul cycle, I went through a brief period of time where I lived in one place for more than 6 months, which is unique to me. And I really got addicted to cycling classes. So I don't know if that would ever be up your alley, but try one. If you haven't tried it before, I don't know, they're a whole lot of fun and very high energy. And I mean, I got addicted really fast. I wish that I still had access to them.
Well, I heard it was very important to wear padded bike shorts.
Yeah, I think that is a good recommendation to, especially if you haven't gone before, because you try to go back to your second class and you're like, whew, I wish I would have had those shorts. So glad that you brought that up. And I guess, we've talked about several things. We've talked about how Mindbody is mitigating bias in the interview process, some tools that you recommend, and even beyond that, how to go about evaluating a tool. Then also, the involvement of ERGs, which I think is fairly unique. I work with a multitude of clients, and there are some that are starting to do that. But I mean, that's what those people in those groups really want to be involved, right? They're taking on a lot of times an additional role to do that. So I guess in the breadth of everything that we've talked about, if you had to boil it down to one thing that everyone should take from this conversation, what do you think that would be? Or what do you think that should be?
Yeah, I hope it's that Mindbody is definitely worth exploring, that it's a company culture that is, really doing well, I believe, in their journey in terms of trying to create a more inclusive culture for everyone. So we have some really good, smart, intelligent people that I get to work with on a daily basis, and I just get to be part of the team, and I'm so appreciative of that. So I'm hoping that, through this conversation, folks will think, I might want to check that out. And check out our website and check us out on LinkedIn as well, and see some of the posts that we do on a daily basis. But that's what I'm hoping we get out of this conversation, is that you'll find that we're worthy of exploring.
Awesome. And I know, everyone, that there were some questions that we didn't get to answer. We have 3 minutes. So Stephanie, tell us how we can connect with you. And then if we have time for one more question, we'll run with that. How can we connect with you?
Well, first of all, I want to highlight the fact that we do have openings. So definitely check out the Mindbody website and careers and see what openings we have, and explore a little bit more about our company as well. And there's information there about our diversity initiatives and our ERG groups too. And then the other, if you are interested in connecting, please connect with me on LinkedIn. It's probably the place that I'm going to see the quickest.
Awesome. And don't hesitate to find out things about Mindbody on the PowerToFly side as well. We've been active partners for a number of years now, I think 4 years. So feel free to hit there too to see all the open jobs. And I think, Stephanie, since you're so concise, let's do one more quick question. And I'm going to take it from the audience. Another kind of tools question that I would be interested in hearing as well. As everyone knows, PowerToFly is a platform to help connect underrepresented talent to companies that care, like Mindbody, but also specifically when talking about people of color. Are there any organizations that you've worked with in the past that you recommend that candidates that identify as people of color look at?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, there's a few different sources that I've used in terms of researching that talent for me. But there's also been the niche that I'm looking for, right? So am I looking for a seasoned professional? Am I looking for an entry-level talent? Am I looking for executive talent? What I can say is that I've been around long enough in this industry that I have the ability also, I have a really rich network that provides me with talent, and me them as well, and introductions to talent too. So some of the last few opportunities that I have assisted with have literally been within my network. And that, I think my LinkedIn's now are like over 3,500, because I did recruit for a long time. I've worked with different sources of talent. One company is Sourcium that I've used that has helped me find qualified, diverse, interested talent. And since I've worked with them on and off over the years, I have a database of talent with them as well. So there's different resources that I go to in terms of finding talent, and I hope that helps. I know I've been around for a minute, so it's a little bit different.
You are wise. I know you always make jokes about how long you've been around, but that's why you're here talking to us today.
I'm a seasoned professional.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think one thing just to keep in mind, I've heard actually Mindbody recruiters talk about this in a virtual job fair as well. So just make sure all of you out there that are interested in a career change, or just interested in keeping your current career as is, continue to invest in your network, right? Stephanie just gave you an example of how important it is. Go out to a lunch meeting, even if it's virtual, with one of your colleagues, or nurture your relationships with different people in and out of your organization. So I think we're at time. Everyone, please reach out to Stephanie if you'd like, and look up Mindbody's careers. It was so good talking to you all today. Thanks for your time, Stephanie, and have a great rest of your Monday.
Thanks, Dana. I really appreciate the time.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.